welcome to all my educational psychology students to this new semester. I want to share a story with you. A student of mine gave a version of this story to me, and I've used poetic license to apply it to victims of Hurricanes Katrina and Rita. The name of this story is The Carrot, Egg, and Coffee Bean. It tells of the possible behavioral responses to trauma. When you are so ready to just give up after losing everything except your life, when you are just so bone tired of struggling and fighting, when you solve one problem and 10 more pop up, consider the parable of the carrot, the egg, and the coffee bean. 3 pots of water were put on the stove and turned on high. After the water in the pots came to a rolling boil, carrots were placed in one pot, eggs in another, and ground coffee beans in the last one. 20 minutes later, the carrots were placed in a bowl, the eggs were placed in another bowl, and the coffee was poured into still another bowl. If you were to touch one of the carrots, it would be soft and pliable. It went into the pot hard and strong, but became weak. The egg went in with a shell and came out with its insides hardened as well as its shell. The coffee bean went in as one thing and changed the water to become something quite different, savory coffee. All 3 were exposed to the same trauma, boiling water, but each responded differently. In the aftermath of the hurricanes or any trauma, do you react as a carrot which loses its strength and will to go on? Do you react as an egg with a fluid spirit that hardens and a heart that becomes embittered? Or do you react as the coffee bean, transforming the hardship to produce aromatic taste and fulfilling reward? Are you going to crash and burn in response to so much trauma, caving in and giving up? Self-pity, defeat, and despair are yours. You are a carrot. Are you going to solidify your convictions that life sucks as well as the people in it, becoming critical and close-minded? Crippling cynicism and paralyzing blame are yours. You are acting as the egg. Or are you going to take your blood, sweat, and tears and demonstrate qualitative change, enabling self and others to reach potentials never considered before? Resiliency, optimism, and survival are yours. You are the coffee bean. The hardest of the 3 is the last one. Which one describes you? You can take back some control and be happy in your misery if you so choose. Few people disagree with the need for immunizations for physical illnesses like polio, diphtheria, and measles. Yet psychological inoculations against depression are every bit as important for health and well-being. Optimism is the serum for an effective psychological inoculation. Reality-based optimism, coupled with personal mastery skills. Optimism gives some semblance of control. Depression occurs when we are convinced that we have no control, when we feel helpless and hopeless and pessimistic. Optimism prevents or vaccinates us against negative things like crippling depression. At the same time, while inoculating against depression, optimism also promotes positive things like achievement and success and resiliency. Optimism protects children, teens, and adults and arms them to withstand life's knocks and traumas. Optimism keeps will and motivation vibrant. It nourishes hope and expectation. Optimism is not a Pollyanna, pie-in-the-sky, feel-good, knee-jerk quality reserved for a privileged few. It is a vital quality needed by every person, and one that can be learned by any person. Optimism is not a pleasant, non-essential trait. It is not something a baby is either born with or not. Optimism is an absolute necessity. It is not a want. It is a need. Optimism is easier for some of us than it is for others. Some are born with a predisposition for it as part of their temperament, and some are fortunate enough, while growing up, to have experienced certain crucial things. 6 of these crucial ingredients for the establishment of optimism are unconditional love, conditional praise, choices, emphasis on the positive, acceptance of mistakes as learning opportunities, and authoritative parenting. These 6 crucial ingredients can maximize student development. Unconditional love is the first of the 6 crucial ingredients. Unconditional love is not dependent on performance. It applies more for parents than it does for teachers. Nothing a child could ever do or not do would change this love. This love is total, unbridled, unearned. This love exists because the child exists. Children should experience such unconditional love from parents. They should be convinced that there is absolutely nothing that would endanger this love or place it in jeopardy. Parents and teachers should criticize misbehavior if they must, not the child, not the teenager. They may find fault with behavior, but they should leave the personality out of it. The worth of a child or teenager is not dependent on good behavior. You love him, you love her, no matter what. Goodness is there, no matter how well disguised it may be at the moment. Parents must be convinced of this in order to relay this necessary message to the child. When dealing with teenagers, parents have to understand that autonomy and questioning are healthy signs of development, not blatant signs of disrespect. These teenagers are still lovable creatures. The relationship that once existed between parent and used-to-be child has not regressed or become in any way inferior to the relationship between parent and present teenager. The relationships are changed. They're different. They are transforming as the developments of both the adults and the child or teenager are evolving. This is not bad. It is good. It is also inevitable for the healthy launching of new productive adults into society. Every child, every teenager, every adult deserves unconditional love. It is their birthright. Without it, there will not be maximum social and emotional development. With it, there is a greater chance, though not 100% guarantee. Unconditional love is extremely important, but it is not the only factor necessary. Parents cannot be too hard on themselves when, despite their best efforts, something goes amiss. The second critical ingredient is conditional praise. This is reserved for successes and honest attempts. It must be earned to be credible. Unconditional praise may attempt to make the student feel good about self, to increase self-esteem, and to value self, but unconditional praise fails miserably. Praise must be earned, must be conditional, must be dependent on doing well. Then the positive self-esteem and valuing of self will follow automatically. Feelings of self-esteem are byproducts of doing well. It is not enough to encourage a student to feel good. You must teach the skills of doing well. Doing well brings feeling good automatically. So you set the stage for daily successes. You make success inevitable. Encourage the child with "you can do it," and celebrate and affirm achievement and success. Break the task into small manageable steps with rewards or praise along the way. Rather than demand that a student clean his or her desk, suggest that a good start would be to collect the paper first, then the books, then the pencils. Be available to notice and praise each successive approximation to the final goal, a clean desk. This technique of breaking the task into small manageable steps is called shaping, and is a powerful operant conditioning technique that you're going to learn more about. When a lengthy report or project is assigned, structure small steps like bringing in 3 articles or writing index cards, etc. Oral reports can start with a small group and just reading while sitting, then standing, then larger groups, etc. Celebrate achievement and success. Not only must the student succeed at something every single day, but he or she must be affirmed for the success. Part of a job description of a teacher is to see to it that success is tasted every single day by every single student. For some, it means creative searching, manufacturing conditions, setting things up so that failure is impossible. Appropriate actions and behaviors should be noticed and celebrated with believable praise that is specific and credible. I love the way you blended the colors in the sky instead of, that's beautiful. I really appreciate that you turned in your assignment on time or did your work neatly or helped your classmate without being asked to. The third major ingredient for the development of optimism, allow choices to be made whenever possible. You can choose 3 out of the 5 questions to answer, or you can choose the odd or the even problems to do your homework or to do your seat work. You can do this assignment now or over the weekend. Allow choices. The fourth ingredient, emphasis on the positive. A glass is half full rather than half empty. You reward effort and trying and persistence as well as successes. Wow, you worked the whole problem. Instead of good going, but your answer is wrong again. What a way to go down swinging instead of you struck out again. Emphasize strengths rather than harp on weaknesses. Focus and stress what a child does right rather than what is done wrong. Build on the natural strengths rather than accentuate the mistakes and the screw-ups. You may have cheated, but I really am impressed that you did not deny it. You did great on the essay part of the test. Your theme or starting idea is quite creative, not your organization is pitiful. Give half credit back when wrong test items are corrected promptly. This is another way to emphasize strengths rather than to harp on weaknesses. The fifth ingredient, acceptance of mistakes as learning opportunities. Mistakes are springboards for growth, not the end of the world. Allow failures. Provide a non-threatening atmosphere where mistakes are okay as long as you learn from them. That was a good attempt, but you need to add more. I see what you are trying to say, but the answer involves a much later time in history. Instead of hollering at a kid who has just dropped all of his or her books again, how much more effective is it to help him pick them up? While not being overly critical, use mistakes as opportunities to learn and change and grow. Do not try to protect the student all the time from experiencing failure or feeling badly. You're doing him or her no favors by shielding from unpleasant things. You should not come to the rescue all the time, solving problems for the student before he or she has had a chance to discover solutions on his or her own. Sympathize with and validate feelings of failure or disappointment. Try not to make the mistake of making the student feel better by denying reality. But you are the best writer in the world does not promote optimism when the child is upset with being clueless in math. It is better to validate the disappointment and anger and suggest a different way of solving the problem, or maybe taking a break before retackling the troubling problems. If a student fails a test, do not pretend it does not really matter. Give non-judgmental chances to relearn the information for extra points. If a teenager loses a hotly contested school election, it does not promote optimism by saying that the race was not important in the grand scheme of things. Rather, express your sorrow that the teen is hurting, and be on standby when and if he or she wants to talk. If a child loses a championship baseball game, emphasize with his or her feelings of disappointment. This is not the time to offer criticism, no matter how constructive you think the criticism is. This is not the time to advise on how to win next time. Rather, this is the time for a hug, a sharing of a big hurt you remember happening to you, or silent availability. The sixth ingredient, authoritative parenting. Authoritative discipline. Not to be confused with authoritarian. Authoritarian rhymes with barbarian. Authoritative parenting encompasses all five of the previous ingredients. It is firm discipline that is flexible and allows for discussion and negotiation. It is fair, loving, nurturing, and strict when necessary. It is not liberal, permissive, anything goes. Authoritative discipline does not use punishment as its primary tool to foster obedience. Negative reinforcement is relied upon more frequently, reserving punishment for more acute offenses. To give an example, Steve pushes Bob in line or on the playground. An authoritative approach would make Steve file out until appropriate make-up behavior is forthcoming. He would have to come up with something which would make Bob feel better, an action that would make things up to him. Like Bob is included in the game, or gets to choose the next game, or gets to be first, or gets half of Steve's snack. Steve has control over how long he is subjected to the aversiveness of exclusion. Steve can rejoin as soon as restitution is made to Bob. Negative reinforcement focuses on increasing good pro-social behavior, not just stopping bad. An authoritarian approach would punish Steve from recess or send him to the principal or disciplinarian. Steve has no control over his situation and must pay the piper. Punishment focuses on stopping bad behavior and does not offer substitute behavior. Another example. A teacher keeps a student from recess until the required work is done. A coach ends bench time as soon as the player is willing to practice good sportsmanship, like no name-calling, fighting, or bragging. These 6 crucial ingredients help establish optimism, which improves our psychological health. But optimism does not stop at improving our psychological or mental and emotional health. In addition, optimism improves physical health. Optimistic persons are more likely to take better care of themselves, like wearing sunscreen, eating sensibly, etc. Optimism curtails emotional problems that make physical disease and vulnerability and susceptibility worse. Optimism is linked with stronger immune defenses and greater numbers of disease-fighting cells. Harvard graduates who tested as very pessimistic in 1946 turned out to be the least healthy 34 years later in 1980. In general, people with optimism recuperate better following bypass surgery and cancer. Optimism improves health by enabling the alteration of behaviors that can kill. Smoking and drinking habits, unhealthy stress responses, bad nutrition, non-exercise. It's hard to turn these things around without optimism. Optimism promotes that elusive thing known as happiness. Happiness is not a fixed, static state, and it is interspersed with unhappy times and blue moods. The prime place in the brain responsible for happiness is the left prefrontal cortex, as shown in functional MRIs and EEGs. Dr. Edward Diner of the University of Illinois has found that happiness is bred with social skills and close interpersonal ties to family and friends, and the commitment to spending time together. I'm recalling hilarious stories of relatives thrust together as hurricane evacuees, spending too much time together, and surfacing with transient but trashy gutter mouths and hurt, angry feelings exposed. Spending time together advice does not include living together indefinitely. Everyone needs space. Dr. Daniel Kahneman of Princeton University has distinguished between experiencing self and remembering self. People are far more likely to remember the emotional high and low points of an event, plus the ending. If anything ends well, this reflection will color your actual happiness level present at the time of the event. When you recall a Disney World vacation, you muse over the happy ending rather than the problems of traffic, rude people, or long lines. Or if the ending was not so happy, the unhappy ending will cloud the real joyful moments and events that had occurred earlier. Somehow the arrival of my priceless firstborn baby obliterated all the unpleasantness of morning sickness all the way through to the end, and a traumatic catheterization by a nurse who she had to flunk anatomy. It was obliterating this arrival of my baby. This precious baby obliterated the C-section surgery and the explosive spinal headaches that lasted almost 2 weeks. The awesome end result of a priceless baby was foremost in my mind, foremost in my reflections, as I deliberately planned priceless baby number 2 within months. Likewise, the tragic ending of losing 2 newborns in a row obliterated for my daughter-in-law any pleasures of feeling that she had had with the babies moving inside, or hearing their heartbeats, or seeing them apparently healthy on ultrasound. The end colored reflection of the whole experience. Dr. Martin Seligman of the University of Pennsylvania has discovered that of the 3 main ingredients of happiness, pleasure, engagement, and meaning, smiley face pleasure is the least influential, and engagement and meaning are far more consequential in whether or not a person is happy. Engagement means involvement with family, job, romance, and hobbies. Meaning is using personal strengths to achieve a larger purpose. You may not be able to control bad things that happen. Illnesses happen, unemployment, lost relationships, death of loved ones, accidents, flooding, hurricanes like Katrina and Rita, and the literal loss of everything. Loneliness, holidays without our favorite people, social events without a date. You may not be able to control these bad things, but you can certainly be taught to control your interpretation of and response to these things. This does not mean sugarcoating all the bad stuff that happens to you. It means recognizing it for what it is. Bad. It sucks. But not allowing it to keep on extracting a toll indefinitely. Not allowing it to victimize you as hostage indefinitely. Supple pine trees are able to bend in heavy winds. Macho oaks will crack and splinter. It is better to act as a supple pine tree in the face of trauma rather than as a macho oak. Bending with trauma and operating in spite of it, acknowledging and legitimizing it as bad and undesirable, this beats excessive shielding and running from trauma, minimizing tragedy as if it did not exist. This beats acting like a macho oak tree, standing tall as if the trauma had met its match. If cracks and splintering occur anyway, just due to the sheer enormity of a tragedy, pick up the pieces rather than pretend there is nothing broken. How you pick up the pieces, how you choose to mend will determine the ultimate outcome. Learn how to be happy in misery rather than miserable because of it. Be a true survivor. Even if your upbringing did not generate optimism, even if unconditional love, conditional praise, choices, emphasis on the positive, acceptance of mistakes as learning opportunities, and authoritative parenting, even if these were not part of your daily existence, it is not too late. It is never too late. Better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. Model a happy face for openers. You will experience some of the inner peace that goes with it. Genuine smiles are contagious. They enable recovery, and they have healing power all of their own. You can be sensitive and cheerful without being a sucker or pushover. There is a lot of wisdom in the old saying, You catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. Misery may love company, but company does not love misery. This happy face includes language. What we say influences directly what we feel and what we think. Saying becomes believing. People prefer to be around pleasant people and to avoid negative, complaining ones. The ability to laugh heartily benefits in several ways. It exercises and tones the cardiovascular system and the respiratory system. It relaxes us and decreases muscle tension. Another suggestion: create something to look forward to. Nurture hope and expectation by having something planned ahead. Be curious and excited about something in the future. Rediscover childlike awe and wonder for the simple things in life, like a colorful insect, the tingle of a wind chime, the aroma of cookies or bread baking, the warmth of a fluffy towel fresh out the dryer, the feel of cool water between the toes, the beauty of a sunrise, sunset, the greenness of a blade of grass, the sweetness of an apple, the twittering of a bird, the sight of a mosquito hawk or a butterfly, the antics of a squirrel, a puppy cocking its head with expression, a cat chasing its tail, dust particles sparkling in a sunbeam, the taste of chocolate, the smell of rain, the colors of a rainbow. The list goes on endlessly. Rediscover this childlike awe and wonder for all the simple things in life. Another suggestion to increase optimism: time management. Make time work for you instead of against you. Have well-planned schedules that use your time efficiently and balance work and playtime. Another suggestion: read one of Dr. Martin Seligman's books on optimism, like The Optimistic Child, and find out what the main optimism skills are and how to incorporate them into your daily life. 4 are cognitive skills and 2 are social skills. One of these is decatastrophizing, meaning stop making worst-case scenarios. Stop worrying about things before you have to. Chances are you may never have to face the feared event. And even if it does turn out to be true, how does it help to worry twice? Cross bridges when you come to them. If traffic is horrendous, do not begin thinking about how mean the professor's going to be when you walk in late. Don't anxiously check your watch again and again. This will not make you arrive 1 second sooner. If your toddler throws a temper tantrum in the grocery store, do not begin fearing his ultimate doom as a juvenile delinquent or a criminal behind bars. When your significant other breaks up with you, do not dwell on thoughts of being alone forever. When you've lost so much from these hurricanes, don't entertain thoughts that things will never be better. Seligman gives advice and presents programs based on 3 decades of painstaking research with hundreds of thousands of adults and children. You can also read other books: Dr. David Meyer's The Pursuit of Happiness, Daniel Goleman's Emotional Intelligence. There are other suggestions for increasing optimism. Substitute other activities for the ones that you cannot participate in fully, but stay active. Find time to regularly exercise in some form. Exercise can increase the metabolic rate and help to burn calories even when you are relaxing. The higher metabolic rate lasts for hours after the exercise. Exercise also makes it easier to maintain a lower weight. An additional benefit of exercise is that it buffers stress. Stressful events then have less negative impact on health. People who exercise regularly have more effective coping skills with stress and more positive identities. Another tip: help someone else. This gets your mind off your own troubles faster than anything else. It's the do-good, feel-good phenomenon. Maybe you can donate time to community or church endeavors. Help a lonely elderly neighbor. Let somebody get in front of you in traffic. Let someone with few items go ahead of you at the grocery. If you're not ready to be nice to people, maybe you can begin by caring for other living things like plants or pets. You can start off small and work your way up to people. Social connectedness increases immunological functioning. Support groups supply social connectedness, each helping the other. Heart attack survivors who are socially isolated are much more likely to die sooner, especially so in older people. People with the most social ties and connectedness are the least likely to catch a cold. Support group participation lowers pain of breast cancer, and it increases the length of survival. Another study found that support group participation increases survival rate and immune function of those with skin cancer. Related to social support and health is faith or spirituality. Faith for some is strong medicine. Another suggestion: write or type or record a journal, especially when you're feeling your worst or feeling your best. Record regularly the things you are grateful for. Writing is some of the best therapy in the world, and it's the cheapest. I have kept a journal or life account since my 14th birthday, many moons ago. Writing about trauma is associated with improved immunological functioning. Partly responsible is the social connectedness, even if no one reads it. Do something nice for yourself daily: a bubble bath, special reading time for the newspaper, sports, or a romantic novel, a cup of coffee, decaffeinated coffee, while watching birds or squirrels out of a window or on a porch or a patio, listening to your favorite music, walking in the park. Don't leave yourself out of the equation. Treat yourself kindly, and this will help you to tolerate frustration better. It will allow you to be more forgiving. It will allow you to be less likely to overreact to criticism or to misinterpret events. Don't try to be super perfect. Be realistic about how you can do or how much you can do, and learn to say no decisively when others impose more than you can handle, or when others are too nervy with their requests. Being nice to self includes not letting others take advantage of you. Develop a stress-fighting plan and break it into small, achievable steps, things you can accomplish one at a time. If college demands are overwhelming, pace yourself and schedule a set assignment each day. At the very least, plan to read over all daily notes. If 3 exams are scheduled on the same day, organize to study in advance for 2 of them. If 18 chapters have to be read for a class, aim to read 1 a week. Divide and pace. If your child is consistently behaving horribly and you're at your wit's end, prioritize and choose the one behavior you would most like to change. You're dividing it into smaller steps. Zero in. Focus on the daily steps you need to take to alter that one behavior effectively. Divide and pace. Another suggestion for increasing optimism: use your creative mind. Visualize, rehearse in your imagination ways to cope well with the problem at hand. Do this instead of caving in to anxiety-ridden thoughts. Picture a successful solution to the problem, or at least diffuse stress by picturing a successful response to the problem, if the problem cannot be changed or solved. We can't take away all this devastation, but we can picture a successful response. These suggestions will help establish optimism. But maintaining a vibrant level of optimism after you have established it takes ongoing work. It's like a good marriage or a significant relationship. Nourishment through continuing effort is vital for the excitement and progression to build. All things worth having come at some expense. Invest in optimism. Be ready to reap its rich returns in the quality of life. Do it for yourself. Do it for those you love the most. How do I know that optimism is worth the effort? Because I just know. I could bore you with umpteen life examples from my life and the lives of our 7 children, but instead I'm going to leave you with an example from your ranks, a UNO student of mine who exemplified optimism. Jackie was, before her murder 5 years ago, a package of enthusiasm and hope and determination. She, at age 57, had reached her goal of graduating from college. If this does not seem monumental enough, add attention deficit disorder and spousal abuse and harassment. 3 days before her dreamed-of trip across the stage, her estranged husband of 3 years shot her dead and then himself outside the courts. But let's back up. Jackie carried 21 hours during her last semester. Her estranged husband was harassing her, stalking her, waking her with middle-of-the-night calls, especially before a test. Jackie, the optimist, in March decided to do something. She took pictures of her husband calling from a nearby public phone. She was going to corroborate them with caller ID information to convince police that she was being victimized. Commenting, "Fancy meeting you here," was, said Jackie, her fatal mistake. She was attacked inside her car. He told her he was going to kill her, and she fully believed him. Jackie was a tiny woman, and she kicked for her life. Both parties were arrested, but only Jackie was jailed for felonious assault with a weapon. It seems she did not remove her shoes before she kicked the heck out of him. Nor did she drop her car keys. She doesn't remember scratching him with keys, and the keys were in the hand that wouldn't have had access to him. But still, she was arrested. She languished for 3 days and nights in Orleans Parish Prison, while her aggressor remained free. This humiliation would have conquered a lesser person, but Jackie did not complain. Her only requests from family, who had made fruitless trips to gain her release, were a Coke and a sweater. When she recounted the trauma to me later, she said with a twinkle in her blue eyes, "I guess he looked worse than I did." Jackie, the determined optimist, refused to soften her academic load, even though nightmares and cold sweats and physical illness following the unfair jailing and the continued harassment came about. So even though she was dealing with these things, she wouldn't reduce her load. "If I don't finish, he wins," she told me. "He is not going to stop me from walking across that stage." Jackie indeed picked up the pieces in a way that fostered further growth and positive development. She had endured a 30-year abusive marriage and then incredulously found herself in a second abusive marriage. She was going to use her knowledge and strength to counsel other women. Jackie was to have begun graduate school in the fall of 2000. Her optimism did not prevent the tragedy. It just allowed her to get the most out of life despite it. No matter how tough things get with your academic life, or personal life, or work life, learn how to bounce back. How you choose to pick up the pieces will determine your recovery time. You can be happy in your misery, or you can be miserable in your misery. The choice is yours. Success lies in the balance. You have a lot to give and to receive, so go after it with gusto. Arm yourselves with optimism and cheerfulness, and slay that ugly dragon of depression when it gets too persistent. You, my dear students, can be undefeatable with the resiliency that comes with optimism. Optimism fosters true self-esteem by teaching us how to work, play, have fun, think, argue, and express feelings more effectively. Optimism promotes an eagerness to learn, a willingness to confront challenges, self-reliance, pride in our accomplishments. Optimism gives us confidence in the future, a sense of justice, and the courage to act on justice. Roll with the punches, bounce back after bad things and setbacks happen. Be happy no matter what. This can all be yours if you establish and nurture and practice optimism. I commission every one of you to reflect on what you've learned and to construct your personal interpretation of personality, life, and the value of each. Respect the awesome power of your mind and interface real biology and environmental impact. If true happiness is eluding you, if you cannot seem to capture it fully, then armed with your knowledge, let loose your creativity and sharpen your optimism. An awesome threesome: knowledge, creativity, and optimism. Unleash the power of your minds for the good of all.